Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Luann. I've got Car over there in the kitchen. I'm not sure why he's... You can stay around if you want while I make this video.
Just a minute.
Well, I mean, it'll be fine. It'll just take me a second. So today I'm doing something different. And the reason I'm doing this is because the other day Nathan pointed out to me, he said, you really have a knack for choosing people. And all of my life, I've been telling people I am exceptional at choosing people to be in my life. There's not many things I'm good at in life, but choosing the best people to be in my life is something I'm exceptional at. Already on my channel, I've brought you guys a little bit of Nathan, which you guys don't know that much about him. Car won't let you guys see him, but he's definitely the best person I've ever met. I've brought you guys Katie and Frank James. I endorse all these people. These are the kinds of people that I choose in my life. Over and over and over, I choose the best people in my life. So when Katie was here, we were having discussions about relationships, and she asked me about Nathan. She asked me why I like Nathan so much. So I told her why I like Nathan. And there's a lot of reasons to like Nathan, but then I got to thinking, I was like, why does Nathan let me be in his life? I know all the reasons that I like having Nathan in my life, but why does he let me be in his life? So the next day I was telling Nathan about this conversation. I was like, I really can't figure out why you would let me be in your life like this. Because, well, I mean, I don't know. So Nathan had an interesting response. He said, well, the truth is that I could edit for a bigger YouTuber, and the truth is you could find another editor. But the thing that works for us is the reason that we are doing this is because of our relationship. I don't know, I forget how he said it, but so I decided we should do a series on where Nathan gives us relationship advice, because really he's exceptional with people. And today we are going to talk about Nathan's top 3 mistakes he thinks that people make in relationships. So welcome, Nathan.
Okay, can someone explain to me why you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, yeah, I look quite good. Then you watch yourself back on video and you look like shit. Oh, caffeine. Okay, so anyone who's wondering why they should listen to me when it comes to relationships, you shouldn't. Honestly, I think it's a terrible idea to listen to me. I've often said when discussing politics or religion or morality or relationships with my friends, if we lived in a world that followed my ideas, it would be a terrible world and a terrible society. So that's my disclaimer. When I was quite young, I think around 9 or 10, my parents divorced, and they're both people that are, how to say, attractive, charming, and like to be in relationships. So from a very young age, I've seen a wide spectrum of relationships. I've seen them work and fail, often work and fail at the same time. I've seen mistakes be repeated very consistently, and I've been very close to the relationships. I've seen the good times, I've seen the bad times, I've heard the arguments, I've heard the style in which people argue, and the reasons people argue. So I'm not an expert, and like I said, please don't listen to any of this. If it works out for you, I take full credit. If it doesn't work, then it's your fault. We seem to inherit this one-size-fits-all idea of what a relationship should and shouldn't be. In reality, it's your relationship and your rules. So these are 3 areas in a relationship where you could be conforming, where you don't have to. Okay, number 1. Okay, so most people freak out when I bring up the subject of monogamy. Maybe that's understandable. Sometimes I think that monogamy is far too idealistic for us flawed human beings. I mean, we are descended from chimps, after all. Is it chimps? I have a biology degree, I should probably know this. Okay, moving on. So Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter were famous for living in separate houses while they were together. I think they are not together anymore. But still, moving in together is a very, very big commitment, and personal space is something you don't really appreciate until it's gone. Being in a relationship yet having two very separate lives I think can be beneficial for some people, especially if you're prone to feeling claustrophobic in relationships. Also, living with someone 24/7 can kind of demystify them, and unless your partner's secretly a serial killer, I think mystery is a good thing. Okay, so the last point on conformity is length of time of the relationship. Okay, so this is kind of a weird one. I know the first two are weird, but this is even weirder. I'm often surprised by how most people enter a relationship expecting it to last basically forever, or at least not having a time frame in their mind. It might be good if we classify relationships in advance as short-term, medium-term, long-term. That may allow you to be more adventurous in the short-term relationships and be more patient in the long-term ones. Some people can come into your lives and be very fun and very wild. Others are slow burners. Okay, it probably sounds like I'm against the idea of relationships. That's not true. It's just I reject the idea that the same generic formula for a relationship will work for everyone. Of course, if a monogamous, lifelong, committed relationship in which you live together works for you, then go for it. Just don't go for it unquestioningly. Okay, to prove that I'm not just being contrarian for its own sake, I'll tell you a story about a relationship that I think is as traditional as it gets. It's one of the, if not the most impressive relationship that I know of. That's between my grandparents. So my grandparents are, I think they're almost 90 now. My nan is actually a few years older than my grandfather, which is very unusual, especially for the time, to have a toy boy. I think he lied about his age, actually. Anyone that knows their history will realise that people of that age will have grown up during World War II. It's such a crazy time to grow up in so many ways. You've got these like mythical characters, almost. Winston Churchill in the UK, Franklin Roosevelt in the US, Stalin in Russia, and then Hitler in Germany, in this kind of weird geopolitical power struggle. And while bombs are literally being dropped in your own street and the street next to you, killing people you know on a regular basis, you've got to be a child and grow up. They come from a very tough generation and a very long-living generation. There have been scientific studies that say the less you eat in your life, the longer you can live. I don't know if this is true, maybe I want to fact check that one. But because they were rationed during the war, that could contribute to their long life. Maybe, I don't know. And fasting does seem to be a kind of an in thing at the moment. So let me jump forward to when they met each other, which is obviously not during the war. So back in the old days, whatever they are, my country, Wales, and the country my grandparents were obviously from, on a Sunday, no alcohol was served anywhere. Wales was dry for Sundays. Maybe it was a religious thing, I'm not sure what the reason was. So instead of, just not drinking, everyone in Wales basically travelled across the border into England to, get smashed. So on one of these fateful buses back from England into Wales, my grandparents met for the first time. So my nan has actually got a fantastic singing voice. My grandfather has a spectacularly good voice. When he was a very young boy, he actually sang for the American troops that were briefly staying in the UK at the time. He told me that they gave he was really young, but the Americans just gave him alcohol and cigarettes and said, take these to your family, basically. It turns out that all of the troops that he sang for in that concert hall were actually killed. They were all wiped out. Anyway, so, okay, back on the bus. My nan was singing some really old song. It was probably old then, it's even older now. And my grandfather tapped her on the back and said, he requested a song. That's what it was. She sang it, he enjoyed it, and that was that. So the next day, this is according to my nan, and I'm inclined to believe this story. My nan went into work, and she said to her friends in work, I've just met the man I'm going to marry. He has beautiful brown eyes. They didn't meet for a while after, and eventually met in a friend's wedding, and that's when they hooked up, I guess. For a long time I believed that it was just fate that brought them together. It turns out that my nan actually partially stalked my grandpa. And this is stalking before the days of Facebook, when you had to put a lot of effort into it. They've been together for, it's like 1,000 years or something, a very, very long time. It's like 60 years, 60, 70 years. They've been together all their life, they have 2 children, and according to them, again, I'm inclined to believe it, they are the only 2 people that they have been with. if you know what I mean. So that relationship was very by the book, and it's a fantastic relationship. So there you go. Okay, so setting boundaries can be separated into two different parts. The first one is goals, the second is red lines. So red lines are pretty simple. These are things that you just will not accept in a relationship. You would think that this would be quite a straightforward thing for people to get. Everyone knows what they don't like and don't want from a relationship. But the problem is the human brain. So I love brains. I wish everyone had one. One of the reasons we're so adaptable as human beings is our brain's ability to somehow normalize extreme situations and behaviors. Think of a person that's been poor all of their life. Then they suddenly make loads of money. Much more money than they could ever have expected to make. Then very shortly after, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a year, they want more money. Maybe this is greed, but in reality, it's normalization. Your brain is just adjusted to the new circumstances. So I'll give you some examples from my own life, some embarrassing ones. Me and my flatmate are not exactly great at home maintenance. For example, our TV broke recently, so we just put another TV in front of it to solve the problem. An even worse example was a few months ago when our toilets broke. And when I say broke, I mean they clogged. And when I say clogged, I mean everything that went down the toilet in the last week was on the surface of the toilet. So the first day, it was the most disgusting thing imaginable. The second day, it was actually more disgusting when you think about it. The third day, still pretty bad. So we live very close to lots of restaurants. During the time we were waiting for the toilets to be fixed, those restaurants were the places we went to the toilet. Initially this seemed crazy, but after a while we got used to it. One of us would say to the other, we're just going to go to the toilet, see you in 2 days. It just became a normalized behavior. So when you walk into a relationship unthinkingly, without these predetermined boundaries in your head, it can be very easy to find yourself slipping into these very unpleasant situations without realizing it's happened. Because it happens very incrementally, and at every single point our brain is normalizing these things. It could be something as simple as your partner saying something to you don't like on a regular basis, or saying it in a way you don't like. All the way up to the extreme end, which could be physical violence or cheating. The reason I think setting boundaries in advance could help this is because they would act like a trigger. As soon as you saw the behavior, you would think, I need to reevaluate. So the flip side of this is having goals in a relationship. Not simply saying what you don't want, but actively saying what you do want from the relationship. In the same way that the Beatles were much greater than the individual talents of John, Paul, George and Ringo, a relationship should be greater than the sum of its parts. You should be able to achieve things in the relationship that you couldn't out of the relationship. If there's nothing that the relationship allows you to achieve that you couldn't have done on your own, I would say end the relationship. Simply being in a relationship to be happy is probably not a good enough reason. I'm not saying you should enter a relationship with a checklist of things that you have to get done by a certain point. Just have a vague idea of the direction you want the relationship to be going in. For example, you may want to be fit or stay fit. So if you're sitting down on the couch with some chips, hopefully that would act as a trigger to remind you, wait a minute, this is moving in the wrong direction. Okay, so the biggest mistake people make in relationships is being in one in the first place. Honestly guys, just enjoy being single.